the administrative procedures. And I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting today, some of us snowier than others, on the shared territory of the Qualicum and Sonawas First Nations. And we thank them for allowing us to live, work, play, and learn on these beautiful lands. Just a quick update. If you're working off an electronic agenda, you will have the up to date to the minute policy 701 and admin procedure. If you're working from a photocopy you took about 3 or 4 days ago, then it's going to be slightly out, but we'll let Peter advise on his last draft of the student discipline, which is in item 5. So for today, we're going to kick off with the first reading and or approve as currently written 500 series. Just to note, these all but 2 of these have been approved March of March of 2025 by the board. So should likely not have changed too much over less than a year in schools on the ground and things like that, but I leave that to the group to discuss. And so we'll start off with communicating student learning, which, as we are all familiar with, is driven by the Ministry of Education and Child Care K-12 student reporting policy. And the accompanying communicating student learning piece has been through a lot of work over last year with Rudy and his team. So off the top, I'll ask the question, should this go to first reading, or do you want it to stand as written and proceed? But Dr. Jory has his hand up.
Yeah, just a blanket reminder that and although many of these, well, all of them have been through the revision process within the last year, that from tooth to tail, this entire policy package has been revised for brevity and clarity. The main points, the key points should be intact. It's just, shorter and clearer and therefore more accessible. And that's the intention of this big revision. I would say though that the APs, and this really did come to light last meeting, there's going to be some more finicky detail in there. Those of course are for the new people, and as a reminder to those of you that have been here before, these are really my purview. They will be in here if they're ready to be in here. They will be presented at a board meeting before final approval, or a version will be at board meeting before final approval. And in this particular case, I just want to add one piece in here. There, in this draft, we just noticed, actually Rudy got back to me this morning with his feedback, there's no reference to the assessment and communicating student learning operational plan. And so that should go, I think, 9C as a link, and will be in the next version of this, because that's an incredibly important reference point for us. A lot of work has gone into that plan. Those are my initial thoughts, and I'll put my hand down now.
And that's on the administrative procedure piece. Correct? Yeah. So, excuse me. Not a time for me to get a frog in my throat. Are there any comments on communicating student learning, the policy statements? Elaine?
Yeah, I don't know who was on the call when I said this. I go through policy with a fine-tooth comb, and I have a number of comments throughout that are probably better saved for the next go-around. So in general, I'm fine with all of these going forward so that they go out to our partner groups. One of the questions that got asked, and I think it's a very good one, that got asked about our newer policies, the thousands that we won't be looking at for quite a while, was to send those out to one of our partner groups. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be a good idea. We have lovely paper copies in a binder, and I'm wondering if it wouldn't be a good idea to release paper copies, one copy to each one of our partner groups. And I'll leave that for the board to make a decision on. I'm fine with all of these going forward to first reading. As I said, I intend to write up notes, not before this coming board meeting, but before the board meeting in, well, I guess it'll be the one in April, so that the folks who prepare the policy, Dr. Jory and Trustee Eve Flynn, can kind of look at what I've got, because I've got quite a few comments. The only thing that I would note is that the policy title on 505 in my written copy doesn't have the new title, which according to the crosswalk is supposed to be school-based fundraising and is still sitting as fundraising in schools. So up to you guys what you want to do, but I am at any moment willing to put these into first reading so that they go out to the board meeting and to our partner groups.
And predominantly you're dealing with housekeeping things like school-based or school board fundraising versus fundraising in schools. There's nothing that would alter content or your...
There are some things that are a little bit more content focused. Excuse me. There's some things, there's a couple of things that have been left out from previous policies. So I would rather just make notes and then I can, we can talk about them at the next meeting. I don't want to take up a lot of time here.
Yeah, if you could have it for the April 21st policy meeting, that would be brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Are people willing to batch all of them to go to first reading? Trustee Austin.
I'm fine with them going to first reading, but my just under acceptable use of technology. I'm wondering if under 2 guiding principles and perhaps even under 2C's digital citizenship, if I would like to acknowledge something about the environmental impact of things like AI. So even if we put in something to that effect, that users are expected to demonstrate ethical, respectful, and responsible behavior in digital spaces, and maybe something to the effect that says something like, and to consider environmental impacts of digital use or something like that. Thank you.
It clearly does have that, as we are all starting to learn. I think that's a good point. Yep. Dr. Jory.
Yeah, not to interrupt the flow of conversation, I was just wondering if Trustee Young could forward her notes sometime in the near future so we have a chance to sort of think about preemptively tinkering them in or indulge if that was appropriate.
Yeah.
Nice not to be on time. And I apologize for the late submission on 701. That's entirely my fault. We were intending to have a meeting last week and I was holding off sharing it with Karen until the meeting. We postponed the meeting because of the events that happened up north. And then I didn't give her the latest version. So that's why the delay.
That's okay. It's only for third and final reading coming up next time. Elaine.
Yeah, I'll get these notes out to you as soon as I can. I've got quite a few things on the go right now, so I can't promise it'll be like tomorrow, but maybe the week after.
We meet the 2 weeks before the policy committee meeting, so if it was around 1st of April, that would be good.
Okay, I'll try and get it done during spring break.
Yeah, that would be good. Franny.
Thanks. So I think, am I hearing that like detailed questions about each of the policies would be part of the second reading? Like, are you wanting us to wait? We've got a number of questions for each policy that we have for the discussion. So I don't know if you want us to send that before the next meeting or.
No, let's go through them one by one. We've communicating student learning's had an amendment, 501 accept. Did you have comments on that?
Yeah, I like, do you want me to start with 500? Or no, sorry, 500 is a series. So we had some overall comments and then we had, yeah, so then we had 500 is the communicating student learning. We've got questions
Yeah.
for each one. So I don't know, like, happy to do it however it works for you as a group. Go ahead.
I think people should hear what you have to say. This is the opportunity for folks to understand the views of DPAC. So go for it.
Sure, thank you.
Communicating student learning.
Sure. So if I just want to, if I can start with like the overarching things, we just wanted to thank the trustees and the group for putting forward the question last time about the volunteer policy. So I don't know if that's possible to continue some kind of process like that in the future, where if there are things that come up, you know, even if like if we can't be here, DPAC can't be here, relaying those questions through DPAC and to the PACs, we felt that was really valuable and helpful to have those questions and that like back and forth. In terms of this series, there's sort of like a few things like that come up a few times in the policies, and there's sort of a common thread of like, if a parent or a student has a concern, how would they address that concern? And so I know that relates to a different policy, but I'm wondering if that can be linked in. Some of these ones have that detail written out, like first you would go to the coach and then, you know, or like what would be the process of resolving any kind of conflict. So I don't know if we can link to that conflict resolution policy throughout these, or if it's the idea is to repeat those sort of sections of like, this is the steps that you would take.
No, we don't want to repeat things that are already written. And that's why we don't repeat the aspects of the school act or any of the school ministerial orders and things like that. So resolution 710, maybe you could tell us which ones you needed it added as a reference to. Which policy statements would you see? I mean, I would think you're on communicating student learning, you feel that there should be that policy linked to it. Okay.
Most of them in here sort of required in some way or another. So that was sort of an overarching thing.
Okay.
And
yeah,
then
we'll see the match. Okay.
So
Okay.
may I interrupt for a moment, Chelsea?
Sorry.
I'm just trying to capture the idea here. And so this 500 series, they're all, you know, working basically on student things, right? It's a very student and learning focused policy series, which is why it's the longest one. And that's just the core work that we do in the school district. And so the question that you have, or the point that you're making, is that all these policies should have an indication of how a student or a parent navigates some kind of a question or an issue.
Correct. Yeah.
Coming from this policy, like let's say coaching conduct. Let's say if you have a question or a concern about coaching conduct, what does one do about that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay,
it's sort of
okay.
be like, who would they contact first? What happens when they raise a concern, and then how long should resolution take? Something like that.
Yeah. Okay. We can add that. So 701 is the start of the process for sure, as a reference document. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Julie,
Is it enough to just, like at the bottom of each
I think
policy, there's usually the
yeah.
resources? Is it enough to have that as a link in there? Is that what you're
That's
looking
what
for? Or
that's what she's saying. Yes. Yeah.
like where
Under
it says resources, or
resources
you know,
or
and oftentimes
reference.
it will link
Yeah.
back to ministry sites or within our own policies. So you're just saying, let's add one there that says resolving
So-
conflict.
Yeah.
Is that right,
That's it.
Randy?
Yeah, or even if there, like, I don't know if it's maybe the administrative procedures, if there's a section that says conflict resolution, and then it says, you know, if there's anything specific in a certain instance, or just that's where maybe the link is put, like, so it's really explicit, I guess. I don't know if
That
that's
would make-
possible.
I
I
think
mean, I'll
that
leave
was-
that to you.
That was my question, because when it goes under the resources or the references, it kind of gets sometimes it can get lost because there's quite a few. So I'm wondering if even if it says, what do we say, resources or references, then you have a line that that may be something that can go on to almost every single policy we have. I don't know. Well, not every single one, but a lot of them. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. Have just a little subheading that says conflict resolution, and then the link, and then under sort of a space, and then the rest of the references. So that it sort of stands out a little bit. Otherwise it could get lost within the group of other references, I think.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I think Peter and I have the gist of it, and so we'll regroup on all of them and have a look to see if there's some process questions on follow-up required for each of these policies in the 500s. Yeah, we'll try to link it back. I've got Peter and then Elaine.
Yeah, it seems to me that if we just have it as a link, that might not be clear enough for people. They might not know what that's for. And I think it's worth a sentence or two of just pointing at this and saying, if there are conflicts, use this process.
Yeah.
So that's certainly efficient enough and probably worth the space.
Yeah. Elaine, then Ronnie again.
Yeah, okay, so conflict resolution can come in many forms, and I don't want to get into the
No,
weeds
we're
on
not.
this.
No, we're not talking about conflict of
Let's-
interest. We're still talking about resolution of student and caregiver complaints, that there be a process, not the notion of a conflict.
That's a board bylaw.
No, it's a board policy 710. And I think Randy wants them linked and hyperlinked and whatever to say, if you have a conflict, say under the conduct of coaches,
Yeah, that's
what do I
that's
do?
okay with
What do
me.
I do? That's,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's okay with
that's
me,
what it is.
but I think when you talk about conflict resolution, it's a little wide. What we talk about a lot in our policies is restorative practice, which is wide enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I got the gist of it. Randy, you want to keep going?
Yeah, sure. So
Go on.
another overarching thing that I noticed was I think it came up about 14 times is district values. And so most of the time it was just said district values and it didn't say what they were. And then a few times it was very specific. And so I was trying to search around the website and try to figure out what the district values are. So I know there's the ones in the strategic plan, but then the ones mentioned in some of these policies say like different terminology than the ones in the strategic plan. So I'm not sure it's clear. It's when we reference district values broadly.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to take a second look at that with that question in mind. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Jory?
Yeah, that's a great statement. I mean, there is a list of values in our strategic plan that the trustees have agreed to, but when it's mentioned in policy, I think the gist of that is captured by the policy manual in its entirety, right? I mean, if it's all fine and good to pick several words and try to drive towards those ideas, and I mean that's essentially what is going on in the strategic plan. But the congruity that we're asking for there is about the policy manual as a whole. And so if you say, hey, somebody wants to do a thing, it has to line up. I mean, let's say it's advertising, right? It has to line up. Well, there's a whole bunch of belief systems across the span of the policy manual, that I think are understood by the board and would be understood by a person who works their way through it. And it wouldn't be hard to figure out or ascertain whether or not advertising for a certain product ran afoul of that. Do you see what I mean? I mean, that's one typical usage. And so I mean, maybe that's a vague thing, but I don't think it was intended to be handled in a list.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's much bigger and broader and a little more muddier than that, I suppose.
Well, and it speaks to our democracy and society and as best we can get without having pages of words. Try to hone in. Yeah, no, but interesting concept. We'll keep it in mind. Ronnie, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, keep going. Okay,
Yep.
so policy 500, the communicating student learning. We had a question around there on page 4. It says that the board will support consistent approaches to communicating student learning across schools. So Peter, I don't know if this is what you were just mentioning that you were talking to Rudy about the communication part. I don't know if that's where the consistency comes from, but we weren't really sure how. It's not really spelled out how there'll be like consistency across schools. I know the reports themselves are consistent, like for elementary and then for high school, but I wasn't sure what else is consistent, or how much teacher autonomy comes into play, and there can't be system consistency, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the reasons that we have to quantify the number of reporting times and the date windows and then what's, the minimum level of acceptable content is because we need to have consistency. But that's as much as we can actually enforce what people say and how much they talk and whether they exceed those minimums. And we like it when they do to a degree. There is going to be some latitude there, and maybe rightly so. So in order to make them consistent across the board, I think would be, to state it as an absolute, that's really not what we're trying to say here, right? There's rules, there's a minimum level of expectations. There's ministry expectations, it's legislated. We are going to do those things. And then there's going to be a certain kind of a local flavor to it here in the school district. And we're going to encourage that local flavor strongly. But in order to get everybody doing the same thing every reporting period, that's probably not going to happen. I don't think it's possible, or maybe even desirable.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Should I keep going?
Yep.
Okay. So on page 9, in the AP section 10, there's some wording around accessibility supports, and it seems a little bit unclear if it's optional or mandatory. So I don't know if that's intentional, or yeah, if we can be more clear on how does a family request supports.
Okay. Most families identify what accessibility needs they have, be it translation, sign language, those things. Whether it's written, Form X, students must, or schools must ensure. How do they do that? Okay.
Okay. And then last one for this one was it says that learning reports are strength-based. And it's really nice that they're focused on what students can do and the next steps. But one of the things we kind of hear from parents is that sometimes it's unclear from the reports if there's like areas of concern or problems because they are worded so positively. So I don't know if that's, again, I don't know if that's coming from the ministry or if that's like a sort of a district choice, or yeah, I don't even know if that can really be put into a policy or not, but it feels like there's kind of this culture of like, we will just say everything's getting better or staying the same, but if there's a concern, it's not always very clear.
I'd love to hear from some of the other educators on this call. I know Julian's here, and unfortunately Rudy's not available because I bet he'd have an opinion or two. I can tell you that this particular question has reared up wherever I've been. This is 6 school districts, and it's a provincial wide, and it's probably national and international as well. And we are in this dynamic in education where we want to be supportive, we want to be positive, we want to encourage everybody to do their very best and be focused on the positive and moving forward along these paths. But I do, and in some cases, if you tell a parent that their kid struggles with something or isn't at grade level, for example, it can be a fairly uncomfortable conversation. But there's this whole other element of parents that are saying, no, can my kid read or not? Are they at grade level or not? Are they on track to, do the things that we think that we, collectively think that they should be able to do, or, are there all of their options open for the future or not? And they want more of a hard line. And what I would say is in those particular cases, the parent, if they're not getting that level of clarity, to ask that specific type of question to their teacher and say, yes or no, is or isn't, you know, if you were going to call it, what would it actually be, and press them a little bit to get that information. I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that's as clear as possible, but we are always endeavoring to stay on the positive and the encouraging, and we think that works quite well. I'd like to hear from Ms. Wilson.
On the communicating student parents documentation going home, there should always be a growth area. So these are the things that they're working on and should be identified in all that communication. I guess that's education speak for this is an area of concern and of growth, but we're trying to word it in a way that is also supporting and showing, you know, self-esteem. And the social emotional side of our learning is that we believe all kids are trying their best. And this is our communicating student learning report to parents around where they're at. But those are questions that can also be asked during student-led conferences and the conversations that you have with the teacher. Then it's not as harmful or damaging to students to hear that they're not at grade level or not working towards that grade level, whatever that is at that particular time. So I strongly would encourage families to make sure that you get to those student-led conferences or those teacher conferences that can report back to some of those things.
Yeah, and I'll also just add on to that, saying you could have a student that's exceeding in every particular academic category. You still have to find a growth area there, and so their growth area might actually still be 2 or 3 grade levels above. But that is what we're picking, because they're 4 or 5 grade levels above in everything else.
So
Okay.
I don't know if that could be put into the AP about how parents can ask those questions. Just because I know like the first conference, at least at elementary, it's parents, usually often parents and the teacher, but then after that it's a student-led one. So those are difficult conversations to have with the student sometimes present, if you're wondering if they're at grade level or below grade level and that kind of thing. So
And remember, we're always aiming towards proficient, right? And I think it's about educating parents around, it's not letter grades, it's not percentages, it's about proficiency. And this is the documentation that shows proficiency. I think that would be a great DPAC conversation and a great DPAC parent information session. We've held them before to talk about assessments and to talk about how the curriculum looks at proficiencies. So sounds like a great topic for another DPAC conversation. I also wonder in this particular AP whether we include the link to our internal document around communicating student learning that the committees work really hard on, as well as the ministry documentation in terms of our requirements. So it speaks to what you asked for before, Rani.
Yeah, because I don't think we want to etch sometimes some of this in policy. This is education of everybody and community education and things like that, and to embed it in policy, I don't know if it makes it any better, you know, just because you put it in policy, you know. So I mean, it's like not giving out first, second, and third ribbons now anymore at sports day, you know. It's a bit of the leftover of the next phase of that. Julie, and then Rani, you continue.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. No, I think Jillian basically said what I was going to say in terms of addressing that concern in the AP, not necessarily the policy, because the AP is a little more fluid, but exactly to link it to the communicating student learning documents and stuff, and that might help address that concern within the policy.
Okay. Elaine, sorry, then I'll get back to Rani to continue.
Yeah, I just wondered, you know, Rani, you're shooting the questions here and you're getting answers, and I'm wondering, are you getting the answers that you want? That was one of the questions that I was wondering, because like it's kind of hard to do this. And then the other thing is, I think, as I've said before, there's a level of policy that exists kind of. You don't want it in the APs, you don't want it in the policies, because it's, you know, could constantly change. And I think it's really important to have links to those. So the communicating student learning for more information and the links. And it is something that I've got in my notes as well. So, you know, it's kind of like, as Trustee Flynn said, you don't want everything in policy. You don't want everything in AP, but you certainly want parents to understand what's going on and how to support their children in collaboration with all our educators.
Okay, Rennie?
Thank you. Yeah, so Elaine, yeah, I am getting answers, so I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, some of this I don't really know where it always fits. So I totally appreciate that sometimes it's not a policy, sometimes it's the AP, or sometimes it exists elsewhere. So it's that link for where we can find it. I think for us as parents and caregivers, it's more about you know, like who do we ask? I guess it comes back to that. Who do we ask, and how do we get that information? Because I think some of us know, but some parents maybe aren't as you know, aren't as involved and don't necessarily interact with the school very often, and so they don't know those kinds of things. So having it kind of there is great if they're checking online at the policies. 501, the use of technology. There's mention in there about monitoring student technology, and just we were wondering what that what does that mean and how is that done? Like our students' personal devices being monitored when they're connected to school networks.
Well,
Yeah, I
maybe,
can answer that
Yeah.
somewhat. I mean,
Yeah.
to a degree, yes, there's some fairly sophisticated software that kind of prevents things from going sideways, but it's not a perfect tool. You can never create something fast enough that's going to stay on top of you know, all the filtering that needs to happen, but it does a fairly amazing job for what it is. But you can see if you look, not you, I mean tech department can see all the sites that are being accessed at any given time. And so if there's a question around you know, use of inappropriate sites, they can certainly track those, and they can add them to the no, you know, the block list or whatever. So there is a certain level of monitoring going on, but nobody's sitting there watching, you know, what kids are doing. that we would need a couple hundred more people to be able to do that in a more full, in an actual effective way. So monitoring is a little bit. I mean, it is
Yes, it is.
happening. It's just pretty. It's not specific like that, though.
but
No
also
one's spying on your kid, I guess is what I'm saying.
elementary schools aren't supposed to have personal devices at school and active during the day. And the high schools, they have a sign off on an agreement as to their use of technology in
all true.
schools. So those I think are ancillary to the actual monitor piece. Julie.
Yeah, no, that's all great. And again, sort of to answer that concern, monitor is a broad term. I think what Rainey's getting at is, again, can it be like monitor via an application that has a filter, or, you know, that it just explains a little
that's
bit,
part
what
of
does
it.
it mean to monitor
Well,
via
you know,
a
let's
filter
not-
app or something?
let's not give too much information, because the more information that the kids have about stuff like this, the
Yes.
easier it is for them
It is for them to use
do
it.
things that they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I get that, you know, but again, it's more for clarification, because what some people, when they see the word monitor, they're going to think somebody's looking over their shoulder
Oh,
and
yeah.
seeing what they're looking at. Other people might go, oh, they're just got some filters on their systems, or other people, you know, everybody's going to have a different concept of what monitor means. So again, if we can just add a few words, or is there a place we can point them to, a link or something like that? That clarification, I think, is where it's going.
Elaine?
Just for your information, Ronnie, I have a school district laptop. Every morning that I sign in, I have to say that I will use this technology appropriately, yada, yada, yada. The school board's watching me, da, 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 da. And I actually kind of laugh when I sign in sometimes. But
Hey.
every single device that's related to the school district has that. So silly or not, that's what we do, and we acknowledge that every time we sign in.
Okay, ready?
So they're watching all my crochet TikToks.
They are not.
We were wondering if technology rules are consistent across schools or different at each site. I know you mentioned the cell phones, but are other technology rules, is there one for elementary versus high school?
No, this is it. I mean, if this goes through, this becomes the new version of it. And there are though, codes of conduct at each school. They have, we're shared template. They have, the bulk of the information is fairly transferable. Because they've worked in through the actual legislation, which expects consultation with students, parents, staff. There's going to be specifics in there that are different to each school. A couple years back, we were pushed by the province to work on the cell phone distraction issue. There's legislation that came out there, so everybody's got some component of that. But that's code of conduct, that's behavior oriented. As far as the actual use of technology, it's centralized through our IT department and represented in this policy in AP.
Great. Then I was wondering how or if the CASEL legislation needs to fit into this policy at all. I didn't see it mentioned, but I know like if this is, I guess it depends how broadly this is meant to cover. But that like dictates, how schools in the district can communicate with families. So I wasn't sure if that should be included in this policy or not.
That's a great question. I'm going to have to circle back on that one. I'm going to talk to Leslie a little bit more. It's something that I've worked on a lot in the past, and you're right. I can't speak to it effectively, so I'll need to do a little homework.
No problem.
Okay.
Last one for this one is on page 14 of the AP. It says that it's about the AI use, and it says it talks about non-approved platforms. So just wondering which platforms, like, do we have a list of ones that are approved and not approved when it comes to AI in schools?
Yeah, this is forward thinking. I mean, we're just sort of on the cusp here. We don't have any approved platforms currently for students. We have for adults, we have Copilot built in, but we're just forming our ways of doing business with that currently. And this policy is kind of, and the AP is kind of looking at framing that in with the expectation that we are going to be rolling out some opportunities for our kids 13 and up at least.
And I think Rudy spoke to that at the Ed Committee meeting, saying that the SEAC and Ed Committee, or SEAC and the working group of the Tech Committee there are looking at the platforms for AI to create your exact question. Yeah.
Yeah, we got some training coming up. We've signed on to this little island consortium. We're going to be, getting some I think sound advice on how to roll this out. And of course, we've got a small group of people becoming more expert on it and advising it, as Chair Flynn said.
Okay, ready?
Great. Okay. So Peter, I'll send you a couple other notes. There was a parent who had some tech expertise and had a couple minor edits. So I'll send those to you and you can take a look at those. In terms of policy 502, the field experiences, we had a question on how will the board monitor whether equity expectations for field trips are being achieved in practice, particularly when fundraising pressures vary between schools?
Ooh.
Mostly it's through our principals to look at equity and the tools that they use for field trips. And some of the field trip experience are busing things are being revamped to be more equitable across the district for students to participate. I guess I'm back to my point. If you start listing everything along the way, then we don't have any degree of flexibility for schools to, set their own plans and have, the feeling that they're, we are to do the overarching. We're the high level thinking parts of it. It's the minutia. We get into trouble if you write the minutia down.
I guess but that is happening, that the board or the district is looking at equity between schools, like, because I just, some schools have an easier time fundraising than others. So if that's helping their schools classes go on more field trips versus other schools.
That's the bigger issue. I don't think you can write that one down. You know, that's like Vancouver's inner city schools to, the Shaughnessy schools. I don't know as we can actually fine tune list how that would actually be created, other than like in the case that we're doing now is creating equity on busing rates across the district. So the out schools, Bowsers and the Nooses of the world aren't penalized for being further away in busing per se. Peter and then Elaine.
Yeah, I was at some session a while ago with Chris Kennedy, who's a superintendent in West Van, and he said, and this was in the earlier days of tech when we were wondering how we were going to pay for laptops. And he said, yeah, what our schools can do fundraisers and raise 50 grand in one night.
Yeah.
And I thought that's like, I just about fell over. And I mean, that's the world of privilege. For this particular issue, remember, and I'm going to harp on this until we, people start to kind of, carry it with them. In a very tough budget year where we reduced $2.5 million, we put $200,000 back into supplies, raising the base rate at all of our elementary schools by $15,000. And so even Little Bowser, Little Arrington got $15,000 into their supply money. And of course, we've just done this work and as of the other day, launched our at cost averaging, so that if you're in Bowser, you get the same, rates to go to the downtown activities here in Parksville than if you're Springwood or Arrowview. And so that's a big step forward. As far as what PACs do to supplement that, we don't have control over that. It's entirely up to them to, decide whether they want to spend on activities or they want to, buy, uniforms or equipment or, whatever. I mean, that's up to them. But I think we've, for the most part, done our part to try to improve equity around these kinds of opportunities, field trips being something that was identified as being not equitable before.
Yeah. Elaine and then Joe.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that PACs are a totally separate entity from the school district. And if you've ever been in a PAC meeting with me, I leave after the first little bit because I am not to know anything about what you're doing with your finances or anything like that. That's up to you guys. But what I would say is I did have a note on this around limitations and how far we go in terms of both mobility equity, because that's a huge one and that's very expensive. And you think of somebody who uses a wheelchair. How do you get them to a field trip?
They go in the accessible bus, which we have.
So now we've got an accessible bus and we got so there's financial pressures around that. So limitations, how far do we go on these? And I think that we could kind of ballpark that in the policy somewhere.
Yeah. Jill?
I just wanted to remind trustees in terms of this particular policy and AP is around making sure we've got equitability within our school and making sure that all children can attend, can go, can afford to pay, and those kind of things. I just want to caution us on making a policy that would say that Nanoose has to do the same as Arrington or Bowser. And I think about this around the conversations that we've had in years past where each school is surrounded by different things. And Bowser's principal only last week made a comment around it's more expensive for them now to go to the biological station up in Deep Bay. And they were using that on a regular basis because it was easily accessible. I think about the kiddos that walk to the beach in Nanoose and they walk there. Our kiddos in Arrington can't walk to a beach just because of the proximity. But my goodness, the trails that are part of the RDN network around Arrington Elementary School are phenomenal. So I just want to caution us on creating policy that's about equitability, that we are judging and making an assumption on, because each school community has its own uniquenesses that make them use the areas around them. So just want to caution us in making sure that we're not doing something that's actually going to tie our hands rather than open the doors for our children. And I think the intent of this policy is more around within the school, that it's equitable and accessible to all of our children, whichever field trip they're going on as a school community or a classroom community.
Yeah, one size shoe doesn't fit all. And it's certainly not the premise that we've had. Onward then,
Yeah.
Franny, and
Sure.
maybe I'm gonna let you do a couple more, and then I think these are all going to first reading, that it might be an idea if these were questions that you wrote into us on, but let's do a couple more to see where you're going.
Sure. Yeah, and the intent was not to hand tie any one school or any school in a particular way. It was more just if there is ever wondering if there was like a scan done just to see like maybe there's a school that's not going on many field trips and wondering why they might not be going on field trips, that kind of thing.
Well, remember too, because that data wouldn't maybe be that an accessible or an equity issue. If a teacher has no interest in taking children across the street, you know, and to Tribune Bay, it used to be a big deal. Some teachers would throw their hands and say, I don't camp. I don't go camping. So those kids didn't go,
Okay.
you know, so you be careful with what the data would tell you to make whatever steps come from that. So that'd be my only comment. Okay.
For sure. So with the 503 on page 30, this is the AP, it says that district leadership will provide guidance for complex situations. So if there's competing rights cases, the only thing that seems to sort of maybe be missing there is how are decisions made, like who would make that decision? So like, can we go beyond the guidance? Like, I guess what would be that conflict resolution maybe process for that piece?
You're talking about animals.
This is animals in schools.
Yeah.
Could you give me an example?
Example? Yeah. I'm not sure what you're driving at.
So in the policy and in the AP, it talks about if there's competing, so someone wants to bring an animal, but then there's like, I guess there's allergies or there's trauma or something. It's about which, if there's two things, who gets, you know,
Yes.
the right to have the animal or not have the animal.
Yeah, I can't answer that until I get a really specific version, and then we would have to, I mean, that line's in there because there's going to be some judgment entailed. That's essentially you can't capture everything. Back to Chair Flynn's point.
Yeah, I the only example I've had over my time, and it was dogs in schools and things like that. And when dogs have accidents and things like that,
Yeah,
who cleans it
they
up?
do, which they do.
Which they do.
I got, yeah,
And
everywhere I've been, there's been like
there's-
nonstop challenges around animals, and I'm hoping that this doesn't happen here.
Elaine and then Julie.
Yeah, I guess the comment that I would have, this is
Brian's laughing.
actually, this is a fairly new policy. It's been around for, I don't know, 8 years or something, 12 years.
Oh, no. It's been here forever.
Oh, okay, well, fine.
Yeah.
I think we need to strengthen the area dealing with phobias. My experience working in some other schools, there are some cultural groups that have intense phobias around dogs as a result of trauma that has happened to them in the past. And I don't know whether we have any of those communities here, but we need to kind of tease that out a little bit more, because bringing a dog into a school where a child has that kind of intense phobia, it can be a horrible situation and much worse than cleaning up doo-doo off the floor, believe me.
Well, the policy's been in place since 1985, so you know, but I think isn't that the previous discussion when you think on complex situations that the district leadership and school leadership make weigh the decision? I mean, it's not gonna be cut and dried, right or wrong in any situation, so let's not dig ourselves into a place that, you know, flexibility, awareness, things like that, um, come into play. Julie.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a good example of why having a link to the dispute resolution or whatever that 710, 711, 701
710.
policy is. This would be, you know, because if the school leadership sort of says what a direction is and that's not agreed with, then there's a process. Here's what you do if you don't agree with a decision. So this, to me, this is a good example of, again, under references, have the line, have the sentence or two that explains what it is, and have the link back to that policy. And again, I agree with everybody. This is going to be very, very individual, and there are going to be some things that are enshrined, you know, in the Bill of Rights and in law that are
Right.
you just can't. And then
No,
there's
we
going to
can't.
be other things. So that's why, you know, I
Yep.
think I'm fine with the way it is, as long as there's that link there that says, if you're not happy with whatever the decision is over this issue, here's the process and let's address it.
Yeah. You see, we have the Guide Dog and Service Dog Act as a reference, and that's a dog. My kids went to school with a student who was blind, and she had a guide dog every day at her side, walked to and from school.
Yeah.
And
So there's going to be,
so,
and
yeah,
that's
there's going to be
enshrined in
give and
law.
take. Yeah.
And but then, you know, so is our Mental Health Act, and you know, there's these things are really
Mhm.
sometimes quite huge and complex. So
Yep.
so just
Complicated.
let's start, you point them to,
Yep.
here's the
Yep.
process, and you
Process.
work your way through the process, and
Yep.
along the way you start gathering those experts and professionals and things like that for guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good point. Yep. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Thanks. In policy 505, this is the fundraising in schools. I'm wondering if there needs to be mention of PAC fundraising specifically, because it sort of reads more like this is fundraising done by the school for the school, although we do it on behalf of like this, like, you know, to put money back into the schools. It's just not really clear because it talks about, you know, financial reporting and things like that, which would be separately done the way PAC does that. So I don't know if that needs to be worked into this one.
Yeah, the intention of this was not to
Yeah.
guide PACs. This is intended to guide principals and staff.
Yeah. How PACs fundraising that you articulate through your PAC.
There's no mention of PACs
Constitution.
whatsoever, and that's on purpose, I think.
Carol, then Elaine, and then Julie.
Yeah, I was just going to say that particular policy was developed in conjunction with coaches from KSS, and it was intended for when schools are raising money. It had nothing to do with PACs. It was when schools are raising money, how it has to be dealt with.
Thanks, Carol. Elaine, and then Julie.
Back to that thing about title, I think the new title expresses that better, school-based fundraising.
Yep.
So I would suggest that we change that.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
there you go.
Yep. Fair enough. Julie.
Oops. Yeah. This is confusing. It's confusing for me oftentimes when whoever is talking about fundraising in the schools, whether it's PACs or whether it's the school or whether it's a sports team, it does get very confusing. So I think, yes, if the title can address it right off the top in the title that says, you know, that makes it the distinction between PAC and schools, because it is very confusing for a lot of people, me included.
Okay. Conduct of coaches, Ronnie?
Oh, well, just one more for that one. Should donations be included in that, or is that not included again, because it's captured elsewhere in a different policy?
Donations, how do you mean?
Like just,
with
it says
tax receipts?
fundraising activities, but not anything about donations. I'm guessing that maybe that's captured in another policy.
I don't know, I couldn't off the top of my head tell you if it's captured, I don't remember that. But I'll check.
But are you thinking donation for a tax receipt?
Well, this is an ongoing question,
yeah.
like, can, we do have a link,
Well,
on every one of our
right.
websites where we can accept donations, to the school site and actually through the district as well. And the
Yeah.
PAC requested some months ago to be included in that, and after some discussion, Ryan Hung was able to actually do that. So people can donate directly to PACs through that drop down, and it's fairly easy to put your charge card on there and do that. But I can't off the top of my head recall if we have policy that states an opinion on that one way or another, so I'd have to go back and check.
Julie?
No, sorry, it should be up. How was why? There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay. Randy, I think we'll let you do commentary on conduct of coaches, and then I think I'll ask you to put a letter to us on the remainder because we have the rest of the agenda to get through today. So you have any comments on conduct of coaches?
Yeah, similar to the other ones, like just how do students and families report concerns? But I think we've kind of already touched on that. And then when will families be notified if there's a safety incident or injury? Is that automatic or only certain types?
I think the families are always notified immediately. The general student population is not necessarily what I think we need policy on.
Well,
Am I getting the gist of that correct?
It's not, I don't recall it's not mentioned in field experiences or coaches, and but when you're in the care of an adult in the school system and your child gets injured, there should be, a notification as immediate as practicable, but I don't know, I'm not sure where that appears or if it does. So I agree with the note. I think that's what you're getting at, right, Manny?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
Let me chase that one down too.
So you're thinking of the immediate family, not a school-wide parent population. Okay.
No.
Because school protections branch and things like that come into play pretty quickly, and so if there's an incident,
there's a practice around
there's-
this, but I
yes.
don't know if it's captured in policy or AP anywhere. I can't recall.
Yeah.
Just a note to take a look in the coaches manual that Director of Instruction Terpstra has been working on. I think it should be a link.
It should be in there. Yeah.
But,
Okay.
Should be.
and it might be there.
Yeah.
I know that I've read it somewhere, so it's got to be somewhere in policy or procedures over the last few years.
I think you're
Let
right
me-
on
let me
the
check that
coaches. The coaches manual, I think, touches an awful lot of the minutia of that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah. Let me track that down. I got a note here.
If it's possible to match the
Okay.
AP and the policy, in the AP it talks about volunteer coaches, but in the policy it talks about community volunteers. But I wonder if that should just say community or volunteer coaches to match up.
Okay.
That's it for that.
Okay, and the rest you'll send in a note to us? Because this
Sure.
is
I
going to
actually
Bruce
just
reading.
have.
Oh.
I only have one for the programs of choice.
Okay, if that'll end it up, then that's great, and then we'll move on to the policy 300s.
Sure. Thank you for letting me ask all these questions. So in terms of the programs of choice, it just kind of reads like there might be a little bit of an internal conflict within the policy. So one of the key principles is that it says that the programs are equitable and accessible. And I also know that at the same time we're saying that transportation is not provided. So it just seems a little bit in conflict to have it worded like that. So just want to raise that concern. And then it talks about wait lists only being maintained for a year. In the French immersion program, I know they have in the past maintained it for like the second year, so that if there is a wait list and a kindergartner doesn't get in kindergarten, they can get in grade 1. So I'm not sure if we can revise that.
Maybe Ms. Wilson?
I think we consider that a year, Rennie. Like, so we hold them on the wait list for that year. And so when registration happens at this time of the year, they've been on since last March, April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe confusing in terms of, because we work with two different types of years, a calendar year and a school year.
I think this one says academic year particularly. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
say maintain for the current school year only.
year
So I
only.
think we'll
Yeah.
change it to be maintained for a calendar year or something like that. Mhm.
What item
Yeah.
is that, so I can specifically
It's
change it?
5.4A.
5.4 ABC.
Yeah.
Programs of choice, 5.4 AP.
It's 5.4A.
In the
Okay,
AP,
oh,
yes.
in the
In
AP.
it, yes.
Yeah.
And we
we're
wanted,
more
we
than a
want to
year.
call it the academic year? But how
It
many
says
year?
maintain for the current school
Current
year.
school year.
I think we maybe say maintain for the for a year rather than, because we're in two worlds, two different years, right? So
Yeah,
let's call it
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay, done.
because our practice does that. But you're
Okay,
right,
so
Rennie. Yeah.
calendar year,
So
I gotta
it
know.
was strike out. the
And then I
current
just
year.
wasn't sure how that works for the PLC program. I'm not sure if that's similar or not. I know like there was talk about, well, what if one year they have too many, like to keep it a balanced classroom, if there's
Mhm.
too many grade 2s or something, so they don't let them in that year, like maybe they would let them in the next year or something like that. So
I think
don't-
if we change that to talk about a calendar year versus a school year, that will address all of those. So people that were on the wait list could be contacted to see if they're still interested. So I think we can play with that wait list and just we'll get rid of B as well, right? So yeah.
great,
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so, and you'll send me, well, you didn't have anything more on anything else, so that's great. These will all then go for first reading, the 500 to 510. So now moving along, we've got it's living wage 301. And is everyone's okay for it to go for second reading, or can we go second and third reading? Neely?
Yeah, I think we need to discuss stuff from the last meeting. I got really unclear about what it means to be a living wage employer. And like, is it just slipping some money to the living wage people? In which case,
Yes, yes.
I think to Dr. Jory's point, why do we have it? But if it's something more, if it's something really substantial, then I think we keep the policy. So depending on the discussion, I'll vote whatever way, but I also think we're going to need to go to 3 readings on all these policies. Sorry.
I think Dr. Jory did some research with living wage folks, and we're not on their website and such because no, we did not pay.
We did not pay. It's 500
the
bucks,
bill.
I think.
And to what degree it gets us anywhere, I don't know. So $500 can be spent elsewhere. Julie?
Yeah, I mean, I asked the question last time because I wondered why we dropped off. I don't particularly appreciate the way that you worded that, Elaine. Is it just throwing money at it? That makes it sound like the Living Wage Coalition is a money grubbing entity, and they are not. Whether you're on their list or not, it applies to the principles, it applies to the ideals, it applies to the philosophy. Do you believe in living wage? Do you believe that people in our community should be paid living wages? Do you believe that we are, our students are going through school, and when they go out and graduate from school and go on to have careers or work in whatever industry, should they have living wage? And to me, it's a principle, especially as the largest employer in the district. And it's not that difficult for us because we are unionized and people are paid fairly well. But what it is, it's an example saying, this is what we could be doing, this is what we should be doing. And if you don't keep talking about it, then it's just going to slide away again. you know, and I worry about things like that. You see, south of the border, and you see it in Canada now too. You know, there's big movements for union busting. Let's break up the unions. And it's a slippery slope. Once you start doing things like that, it makes it so much easier to start underappreciating and underpaying people. So I think it's a really important policy to have, because it's that piece of learning, educating, showing by example. Thank you.
Yay.
Trustee Austin, you know I've supported this, so like I totally get it in principle, and my apologies for saying throwing money at it. I do have trouble. I think this is a value, and perhaps we need to talk about, to Rani's point earlier, maybe we need to have another values discussion as a board, and look at, what do we really value here? And I absolutely value being a living wage. I think everybody should have a guaranteed annual income. Like, that's my politics. But to have this as a policy, I don't think it's in the right place. And so I'm not gonna support it going forward. I'm sorry.
Julie again.
I think it's in exactly the right place. We talk about how important policy is to the work of the school district. It's a very important part of what trustees do. This is one of the main pieces that trustees do, this and budget. Policy carries weight. Policy carries those ideals, those values, those philosophies with it. And to me, it's very important. And so if we think that this is important, if this is a value that we really care about, I think it needs the weight of policy behind it.
Okay, let's have it go to second reading then, and trustees we can have a vote to pass second reading or not to pass second reading at that time. Because I think everybody has spoken between the last 2-3 meetings as to where they stand at an individual level. So I'm going to move us along. 302, community and volunteer involvement. Thank you, Deepak, for the comments. Somewhat conflicting between some schools, and that's fair enough. And I think they really are honing in on the administrative procedure. So let's have our discussion now about how that works out, and hopefully lead to more discussion if we go to take it to second reading. And then Elaine. You're on mute, Elaine, or is your hand up? Not on.
Sorry. Yeah, I've been through this about 3 or 4 times now. There's a lot of things that I question here. Let me see if I can be succinct. I think students need to be a part of the purpose here. The meaningful involvement of parents, caregivers, families, students. You know how I feel about that. Students should be a part of everything. I think in the last meeting we talked about under, and I'm sorry, I'm not using the up-to-date one, but under guiding principles E, clarity of roles, we were going to put of board and district staff there.
That's in the AP.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
I thought we
Board
were
and
putting it
district.
in policy.
Yeah,
And then I was wondering about identifying through PACs and DPACs rather than just families, because to my mind, PACs and DPACs are our partners here. Families, yes, and they need to speak through PACs and DPACs. So I would like to be a bit more prescriptive there in policy, and that is under partnership. and again, under advisory or parent caregiver groups. And then I started to work on this, and then I started to think, boy, maybe we should have something different about community partnerships from our partnership groups. And I got really hung up on that, but I won't go there. I am absolutely in favor of everybody having a criminal record check. I can go on, and I won't. I think it's absolutely essential, even for trustees, and I've stood by that. So that's what I've got on that one for right now.
Okay, Carol.
Yeah, Eve, you and I talked about this morning, so you know how I feel about it. I feel that when people are working in schools and there's children around and an opportunity can come without anybody realizing that something can happen. And I know that a criminal record search is a one-time thing and 5 years can pass, but I still feel that, I feel strongly that everybody that works in the school on a volunteer basis, just like all of our staff and so on and so forth, that they do have criminal record searches done. I was talking with the Springwood PAC about a month ago about this, and I feel strongly that that people that are volunteering in the school, that they have criminal record searches done. And if anything, it protects the school district. At the end of the day, if something ends up happening, the morning that I was there with the DPAC, or not DPAC, with the PAC from the school, I was there to observe their breakfast program. I sat with some little kids and had a chat with them. And to me, it brought it home that if I leave there and I run into one of those sweet little kids and I'm of the, of the criminal mind that I'm going to create or do something illegal, that they would see me out at the QF and say, oh, I know that lady, she's safe. She just sat with me for breakfast. So I just feel like that's my rant. I feel that they should have criminal record searches done. And I know it's an AP and that's operations, but that's just how I feel.
Randy and then Katie.
Thanks. Just want to echo Elaine's point about DPAC and PAC. We would sort of like to see where we fit in this framework. We do think that there's probably our advisory role should be reflected in here in some capacity.
Do you want to speak to, though, the notion that was presented? I'm not sure which of the schools that you, Marina, wrote on behalf of DPAC on not being able to get volunteers to work the one-time events and the the hot dog things or the sports day, fun day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we as PACs, we host a number of events at the school, and sometimes, like for our fun day, we have about 35 volunteers. Same with our holiday store. We could have upwards of like 40 volunteers needed to run that full day store that we host at Oceanside. And yeah, I mean, we always do, when we have our sign up form, we ask that they have a criminal record check completed, but we have been told in the past that it's not necessary. So it's definitely helpful if we are short to be able to grab someone. We're all together in the gym. Every volunteer has been told they need to sign in, they need to use the staff washrooms, those kinds of things, to some of those safeguards. But yeah, if, it can be, yeah, that's a lot of volunteers to get. So, making it a requirement. Same with sometimes we're short for like the helping with the book fair. And so sometimes we can just grab someone and say, hey, can you help? And you're in there with the librarian and other parents and stuff. And so it's definitely low risk. And so it's been helpful that we haven't, had to go check to make sure they had their criminal record check for that, 1 hour that they were helping us volunteer. So that could be a detriment for sure. I know our PAC, we talked about it, and we would still, even if it wasn't a requirement, it would still be something that we would want to encourage, especially since it is good for 5 years. And now that it's online, that's made it a lot easier. We do have some parents that have kids at multiple schools, so similar to what Springwood provided in their feedback, it would be really helpful if it was one time for the district instead of having to do one for each school. And
Okay, I've
Jason
got
might have more.
Katie, then Jason after that, and then Peter, and then Jill.
Really good.
Katie,
Great
Katie
speakers
is
list.
vice president. Katie's
Thank
vice
you,
president of
Chair Flynn.
NADA.
I know I recognize most of you, but I'm Katie for Rani and Jason. I have not met you before. Thanks for the great conversation today. In regards to one of the things, I do agree that it would be nice to have criminal record checks for the district. Whether or not it can be done through the school, if there's some way around that, that would be lovely. But I also see why in group settings it's also important to have people that are just readily available to help. The point I was going to ask was on page 75 under roles and responsibilities. It's got a list of things, and unless I missed it, because I'm not sure if I did or not, I know there is talk of that there is confidentiality in several parts in here. It doesn't say when they specifically, like, I would like to see something be signed that they understand the importance of student confidentiality. To me, that's the biggest thing when we're having volunteers in the classroom is they're coming in, and then next thing you know, 2 days later, you have parents sending you emails and knocking on your door because of something these parents said about other students. And I think it would be nice to have them understand in a fulsome way that as we are protectors of the kids and we can't talk to them about a student that isn't theirs, if they could do the same. I don't know how that would look, but I would like to see that under somebody's responsibility to make sure that that is crystal clear to them, because these are our most vulnerable people here. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Jason?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to echo Marina's letter and the difficulty it is in finding these one-off volunteers. We've been told that you do need a criminal record check to go on a school field trip or anything like that. But on the other hand, there's nobody checking that that is actually the case from the administrative side. So we go to the school or to the arena to help tie skates. There's nobody checking all the parents that are milling around with all the public to see if any of those parents actually have criminal record checks. So if it seems like we're always being asked, can parents help with this? Can parents help with that? But if it's, especially if you're a one-off, one time for a hot dog day or selling raffle tickets, or you're coming in to take a basket of hot lunch food to the door of a classroom and then go back down the hallway to help with those volunteers, that we're barely now. I think adding a barrier like that for volunteers that don't have direct contact with kids or in public settings, I think needs to be something there that allows the community to help one-offs without having such a high barrier. There needs to be multiple classifications of volunteers. Obviously, anybody in any medium to high risk areas should have a criminal record check, and we would encourage everybody to get one. But there are just times that it just doesn't seem feasible, and I think it will impact the volunteerism and our PAC's ability to support children with programs.
Thanks, Jason. Yep. Peter, then Jill, and then Julie, and I think we'll wrap it up. And if we can send it to next reading, we can have a good discussion also from our partners and everything at the board table. Peter.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate Katie's notion there around volunteer commitment to confidentiality. And I was just thinking of reading buddies. and that program is carrying on in at least one place and maybe more. And it'd be nice if, everybody was assured that parents who came in were at least aware of that expectation, and that someone, an intent to honor that commitment. In regard to the rest of the conversation, it is written this way currently, recognizing there's different levels of contact. Going, showing up every day to coach is an ongoing risk. Going on a field trip is, I think, enough of an ongoing risk. And those are captured in the, I don't like the term high risk, but there it is for this particular, we can use a different expression, but that, whoops. Sorry, can you still hear me? I think I bumped my mute button there. But I really do appreciate the comments around any contact could be more than enough contact. And like Trustee Kellogg said, you come in to do reading buddies, or maybe not even that, maybe you just come in to be a part of something for a few minutes. Now a kid recognizes you and thinks that you're safe because they believe that you're endorsed in some way. And I'm a little uncomfortable with that too. And so ultimately, I think the board's going to have to make a decision on this, whether it's in policy or the AP. Do you want to delineate between this level of contact, ongoing contact, field trip level contact, and something less than that, and potentially tie the hands of our volunteers in the system, and not have this, like, I don't feel comfortable making that decision myself. I think this is for you. Okay, so it's a great conversation. I appreciate the input, and there's going to be a decision to be made, I think.
Thanks, Peter. Jillian, and then Julie.
I just want to remind us that this is the law. In British Columbia, anybody who is working, they work, volunteer, have unsupervised access to children under 19 are vulnerable adults. They're required to have a criminal record check. It's not a, should we, all those kind of things. It is a requirement for us to do this.
I'm not talking about that. That is, I agree 100% with that. I'm talking about somebody showing up at the door with food. This lower level, right, where it's not.
So one of the things that I take great pride in, and it makes me really, really nervous, is that we create really safe place for children. And the parents around the room here, send your children to our buildings and we take care of them. I always get a shock when I walk into a classroom and the kiddos don't know me from anyone. I'm a stranger walking into the classroom, but because I've been given access to a classroom, they will talk to you, they will share stories with you, they will do all kinds of things. I'm a trusted adult because I'm in that building that we've created as a safe place. Anytime we become more lax, are concerned about not having a criminal record check, creates a vulnerability for us. And it's one that, quite frankly, I don't think the board should be opening up or even be willing to do. And I don't mean to sound pessimistic, or I don't mean to sound, but there are offenders out there, and wherever they see a door opening, that's what they take. I feel really strongly about this one. I'm sorry, I do. We create really, really safe places, and I think we need to guard who comes into our buildings.
Okay, Julie, then Jason, then Rennie, and then we're gonna either not make it through the agenda or need some extra time, so folks will have to work with me. Julie, and let's keep comments to stuff that hasn't been said.
This is excellent conversation. It's given me a lot of food for thought, things I hadn't thought about. So things I'm going to rethink. So I want to thank everybody for that and all of the input. It's all really good. I'm just wondering, just as a little bit of homework, I'm wondering if Eve, as our board chair, if you could take it back to the board chair group online and ask what is in your policy. And I'm wondering if Ranny, if you guys can take it to the BC SPAC, BC Black, and ask, because this obvious, I don't think this is a conversation that's just happening here in our district. I'm sure it's one that's happened in numerous districts, and it would just be interesting to come back next policy committee and hear what those conversations have been in the districts. Thank you.
Okay, Jason and Randy.
Yes, thanks. Just following up to Jillian's comments, which I really appreciate. One thing that said unsupervised in the law that she quoted, so I'm just wondering, is that a separate distinction? Obviously, any unsupervised interactions should have a criminal record check, but we're talking about supervised and in where teachers and other caregivers are, or other support staff are, and particularly outside the building was another distinction she mentioned. So perhaps there's a line that can be drawn there where if you're inside the building, you need a CRC, and maybe if you're outside and like helping with hot dogs or at a
You know, if I can through the chair, I'm biased, Jason. My line of work prior to working within the education system was
Social
working
justice.
with social justice, and there's bad people out there. And I again, I feel so strong about protecting your child in our building that is a safe place. And so I'm the wrong one to talk about slackening off on this. And I know the trustees will do their homework and do their work, but wherever we can safeguard our kiddos, I know that if something bad was to happen, you'd want us to make sure that we've done everything that we can. And so I'm not the right person because I'm very passionate about this.
appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Jill.
We're going to quote law that we should recognize that the wording of the law that it did say unsupervised.
All school grounds though fall under, being a supervised space. So you'd have to be across the street, I think, to be an unsupervised space. And that's part of the access laws that have been passed by Mr. Eby and things like that. Dr. Jory, and then I'm going to have to move us along, folks. We're going to take
Randy mentioned something, and it was in the the email back and forth that I responded to earlier, and around the mention of community partnerships. And most of those are not in legislation, so they are mentioned here in policy. And the DPAC had a question: should we also mention DPAC or PACs and DPACs in this list? And I'm okay either way. What say you, board? Item 5, community partnerships.
Yeah. Got
Yeah,
got it. I've got it. Yeah. Okay, folks, let's have that one go to second reading, and let's please have a robust discussion there as well with folks, because I'm not sure we can call a question on this one. Enhancing Student Learning Policy 303. Any comments? Can it go to second reading? Elaine?
Yeah, there's a couple of comments. I mean, first of all, under board responsibilities, A, establish strategic priorities. Actually, we talked about core pillars previously, so I don't know if we can keep it similar language there so that we don't introduce something different, or strategic plan would be the other thing. The other thing that has become amazingly clear to me, because without saying too much, I have a password that involves the strategic priorities, and belong is the first one. And so I would like to see, oh, Dr. Jory, you won't like this. I would like to see to belong precede to learn, to give, and to grow up under F there. And then there's, okay, this is another rant that Dr. Jory and I have had under evidence and indicators of success, number 5. Down to the 5th, I've got bullets: graduation results and meaningful completion. I would like to see a / educated citizen there. I just think that has a meaning. Meaningful graduation, I don't know quite what that means yet. And then references, there were references in the preceding document that I think would be perhaps useful to have here. And you have spoken to these. You've taken out the ministerial orders and the School Act sections, but I actually think it's worth having them in there. I like references. So those are my comments.
We've got the so you want ministerial order under external references.
Yeah, I think it goes under external references. It's ministerial order M302/20 and School Act sections 8.3 and I can't read my writing, 8.1, I think.
Okay. Any other comments, folks? Jason?
No, he's just coming back in the meeting.
Oh, admitting him, sorry. Okay, seeing no further hands up. School closure consolidation and reconfiguration for second reading. Okay, all is quiet. So that
Oh,
would give
no,
us-
it's me
Oh.
again. Sorry.
Okay.
Looking at the older policy, I think I kind of have given up on small schools. I think we talked about that. That's probably not going to happen. But I think the concept of neighborhood schools that was in the previous policy somehow needs to be reflected in this, that we will try wherever possible to have our kids attend their neighborhood school. It could be under student success and well-being, which is under guiding principles. I don't know how the board feels about that, but I would like to see our kids walk to school and have schools in their neighborhood. That's all.
Dr. Jory?
Now my brain is full now, so forgive me if I don't, I'm blanking a little bit. But that content, that ishness, I mean, I quoted it during our public town hall. It's not here, it's elsewhere. But it is still, and it should still exist, and I can search it when I'm done this meeting here. Neighborhood
Schools. Word search.
neighborhood school. Oh, yeah, no, I
Okay.
search.
Okay,
And to prevent redundancy, maybe it shouldn't be everywhere.
Okay. Okay, 305, public interest disclosure. Being no hands on that, we'll take that to second reading as well then. For third reading, student discipline 701 has been adjusted. It's in the electronic packages prepared by Dr. Jory after his review with the senior team, principals, vice principals. This is third and final reading. Do we want to just hold it at second reading? I'll just hold to next meeting and people then will have a chance to have a look at it in time for April. Is that okay? I've got Ms. Tickell first and then Elaine.
Thank you. I would love to discuss this because this was the primary reason I decided to spend my afternoon with you lovely folk. So if you could give that consideration, I'd love that. Thank you.
Okay, but we're gonna hold it over till the April meeting for discussion, so you'll have to join us again in April.
Fair.
Okay, fair, thank you. Any other cons? Oh, Elaine and then Peter.
Yeah, actually, I kind of took a look at it online and I kind of like the changes a bit, but to Ms. Tickell's point, let's just hold it over.
Okay, Dr. Jory?
Yeah, and to my point, I have a little group of principals that are giving me feedback on this. We postponed last week's meeting because of the events up north. And so I'd like to give them one more chance to look at it. And remember, this is 3 separate sections. There's the policy, there's an AP on discipline, and then there's an AP on substance use. You should be looking at the version that says proposed revision 3. So we've been around a few times on it. And this one also has an appendix that is a list of progressive school-based responses. And that's not a final list. That's for this group's consideration. We did some work to generate it last meeting, and I want to make sure that I'm capturing it. And And the order makes sense. It's not exactly in order, but it kind of is, and I want them to speak to that. So my hope is that it'll be in good shape by the time it comes back.
Okay, so we'll hold that one more month. 710 resolution of student and caregivers complaints done in conjunction with DPAC, and I think third and final reading should be good to go because we didn't have any comments last time on this. Ms. DeKelp.
Sorry, my hand was up from the previous one.
So-
Peter, I didn't, I don't have, and I just printed the one from this morning. The last section you're referring to, I have the 3 sections and then you referred to
There's a form.
some,
There's a form.
yeah.
Keep going.
Appendix on
Keep
the
going.
last page. Do you not have that appendix attached on the last page?
Are you able to
I
send
don't-
that to me, please?
Yeah,
Oh.
you are, what is your address? Some VP or
LX 69 VP.
LX 69?
It's local
That's grand.
extra 69 vice president. It's ridiculous. Send it to, Ryan can forward it to both of us. We're on speed dial.
Yeah, it's page,
Uh,
that's odd because it's page 105, 106 in the package. On the
I have-
website, I'd go through the website actually, but
We just
or
sent
the
out a
agenda,
revision.
the agenda
A
was
revision at
sent.
the last minute
Yeah.
there. Even I just
Yeah.
noticed when I was doing my preparation this morning that it was missing.
Thank
Yeah, okay. Hey, in regard to 710, don't think that's the latest version of the PAC generated page, because the latest version had a notation in there that said we expect most conflicts or disagreements are going to be resolved at this level. So I feel like this is one version earlier than that, and I just want to call that to everyone's attention before so when it shows up later with the final
Have a
version,
look.
that it's
Everybody key into looking at when it's on the board agenda. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I think really valuable discussion on a lot of fronts. So policies going forward for first reading are all 500s. Second reading is all of what we've included here, 301, 302, 303, 304, and 305. We'll hold for third reading on student discipline, but put forward for third reading resolution of student and parent caregiver complaints. Did I miss anything, everyone?
No, awesome work there, Chair Trustee Flynn.
Randy, one more shot.
Thanks. I think there was talk earlier about sending out the 1,000 policy documents.
Yeah, there's been a
Would
request.
you-
There's
Yeah,
there's
would
been
you
a
be-
request. Yep.
Yeah. but
We'll talk about
you-
it.
Okay, great,
Okay.
thanks.
Yep.
So printing the binders is where I would go.
Let's Superintendent Jory and myself discuss.
Yeah, I'm not
And
so sure that's the easiest way to do it, but I'm happy to share the 1000 series in advance, just to give people a little more time to chew on it. They're all new.
yeah, and I shared the 1050 that DPAC was looking for when they were cross-checking some things. So if we need to do it, then we'll just have a chat about it, and we've got lots of time between now and April 21st is our next meeting. 1 o'clock, video conference again, and thanks folks for joining us with all of
Yeah, the
your
1000 series is really interesting. Really interesting reading.
Is that your teaser for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.